Shalom, 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 shalom. First and foremost, giving infinite praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, B'chakodash, and give a double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and shalom and salutation to all you sincere Akim across the four winds, pushing His truth with sincerity of heart. I'm your fellow servant, Kasamagan from the DC camp, coming at you through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, B'chakodash, and for the elect. Now, in this lesson, all through the Spirit, we're going to talk about the wine of Babylon being on trial. And I believe beginning in 2026, the wine represents philosophies, ideologies, all right, that Babylon has been pushing across the four winds. And also how the Israelites, all right, male and female, the Israelites, so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, how we've been influenced by the wine of Babylon and the effects that it's had on our people. So the whole world is going to be perplexed because now that the Lord is exposing the side effects of Babylon's wine, and people are really, they're anxious basically, and that's going to bring about chaos, societal chaos in every single nation across the world, which is part of the judgment of the Heavenly Father Yahweh and His Son Yahushua, which is ushering the new wine, the true new wine, which really was always the old wine, which is the truth, the gospel. All right, so without further ado, again, let's go to this is Jeremiah chapter 51, and I'm gonna start at 7. It says, Babylon has been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. All right, so you talk about from the Constitution, the belief in the Constitution, the progressive mindset, so-called conservative Christian mindset, feminism, so-called free will, do as that will. So all these different ideologies that Babylon has been pushing across the four winds and heavily pushing that mindset upon the nation of Israel, these ideologies are failing the people. All right, it's failed Babylon, and you're going to witness that beginning 2026. And that's when we're going to get all the civil unrest and all that. It's because there's a clash of ideology, and it's going to be a clash of all ideologies in 2026. I believe the way of Edom, Esau is going to be rejected, and that's going to bring about chaos. All right. And this is the Lord's doing. All right. It says, Babylon has been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine. Therefore, the nations are mad. All right. Democracy is going to be on trial because Babylon speaks greatly about democracy. But democracy has failed not only Babylon, and we're going to witness the fall of democracy in 2026, I believe, with total chaos and civil unrest. We're going to witness that. We already seen political assassinations, which that is the main reason why you had democracy and a voting system and a so-called free speech, is so that you wouldn't have political assassinations like Charlie Kirk. So you have all these different things that are happening that are, basically putting Babylon's wine on trial. Feminism has been a humongous failure. That particular trial one of feminism, which has shown to fail throughout history, has failed once again. It's been one of the greatest cancers to Babylon, which we thank the Lord for that. But that cancer has also destroyed a majority of Israelite women and Israelite families. So that particular wine has been devastating. The wine of indoctrination, school indoctrination, that's been devastating. These are, the IQs are the lowest it's really ever been. The world is full of some of the dumbest people. Right now, with the high level of technology, we're some of the dumbest people that have ever existed. The American citizen as an individual is, by just the dumbest, most unaware, most ignorant group of people in the history of humankind. But yet, there's a lot of might in technology because the elites are at the very top, controlling everybody in the bottom, and there's a gap between the average person and what he knows. There's a huge gap between them and the elites of this society, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and they servant dogs like the politicians that you see on TV, right? So a lot of these things are going to be brought up to question, and that's going to bring about an introspection in all nations, beginning with Babylon the Great. Jeremiah 51:8, it says, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take balm for her pain. If so be, she may be healed. All right. But the problem is there's no remedy, because when you set up on a society and a culture, it's based on your spiritual ethics, which the spiritual ethics of Babylon has failed, because it was always based on, basically a witchcraft. All right, it's masquerading Christianity, but really when you see the setup of Babylon and it's witchcraft, and the pastors, right, the pastors in the church, that's also going to be called in question. Every single aspects of Babylon is going to be called into question. There's going to be rebellions. There's going to be defections. Even in the truth, even when it comes to us in Israel, you're starting to see major separations. Why? Because it's a matter of ideologies being trialed. Every wine under the sun, every philosophy and ideology is on the trial. And what's going to be left standing is this true gospel of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua through great millstone, without a doubt. Everything else that you've known, that you've been taught, that you grew up watching, is going to collapse right in front of our eyes, beginning 2026, I believe, through the Spirit. And you're going to feel that spirit of just confusion all over the earth, beginning here in Babylon the Great. Jeremiah 51:9, it says, we would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her, and let us go, everyone into his own country. For her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and is lifted up even into the skies. Right? You cannot heal Babylon because, first of all, Babylon was meant to be ultimately taken out and destroyed. But Babylon is more than just Babylon is just an idea. Like I always state that being an American citizen, it's an idea. All right, being American is not a nationality. All right, just like back in the ancient times, being a Roman was not a nationality. Being a Roman was an idea. All right, so you could have been a Chinese Roman. You could have been an Indian Roman. You had African Romans, but the primary nation was Edomite Romans. All right, so Rome was an idea. Being a Roman was an idea. All right. Not a nationality of people. Same thing with Babylon. Babylon is just a combination of ideologies. So if those ideologies fail, then the whole nation is going to fall. That's just how it goes. You don't go from having an ideology as a nation for all these years, and all of a sudden you flip and go into a brand new ideology. You're not going to do that. Now, the RFID microchip, that's part of the ideology of Edom Esau, which is technocracy, rulership via technology, which Esau's technology is his ultimate form of witchcraft. All right. So you have to understand what is going on. All right. The Lord is breaking everything down. And I believe through the Spirit, starting next year, it's going to be so obvious. Now let's go to the next precept. This is Isaiah chapter 24. And I'm sorry, 4. It says, the earth mourneth and fadeth away. The world languisheth and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish. All right. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws. All right. Meaning the true ideology, which is the law, statutes, commandments, Leviticus 26:46. It's being transgressed by the Israelites. And even other nations that pretend to be so-called Christians or Bible believers, they've taken upon themselves to follow our laws, and they do no such things. All right. It says, change the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. It says, Isaiah 24:6. Therefore has the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and a few men left. All right. So it's going to be multiple fires. We know ultimately it's going to be thermonuclear missiles. It says the new wine mourneth. All right. The wine, again, a.k.a. philosophy, ideologies, is mourning, meaning it's not delivering. All right. The church hasn't delivered. Christianity hasn't delivered. Islam hasn't delivered. Feminism hasn't delivered. Democracy hasn't delivered. All these different ideologies. Do as that will hasn't delivered. right? So all these things are falling and they're failing the people. So now the people are anxious, all right, because everything is falling apart. Because without the proper ideology, your whole culture, your whole thing it's just going to crumble, all right. Because men are moved through ideas, and if you don't have the proper ideas, and if your ideas is not according to the idea of Yahweh Shem Shah, your nation is ultimately going to crumble, all right. It says Isaiah 24:9, it says, they shall not drink wine with a song, strong drink shall be bitter to them that drink it. All right. It says the city. Actually, I'm gonna start. I'm gonna go to No. I jumped. So like it. Let me read. Let me read 6. It says, therefore has the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and a few men left. The new wine mourneth, the vine languisheth, all the merry-hearted do sigh. All right. Just look at this past so-called Christmas. It's just not the same. It's not the same. Why? Because the majority of people know that Christmas is commercialized pagan, holiday, so-called high holiday, right? So the ignorance is gone. The people are aware of the deception of Christmas. So therefore the juice is going out of it. So, but the people have lived like this, right? Generations upon generations. Families used to gather together on so-called Christmas, but now everybody's staying to themselves. Certain family members don't want to link up because they're like, nah, I know Christmas is garbage, but those ignorant, those ignorant Negroes over there, across town, they still believe in this garbage, and we ain't trying to be around that. We're not trying to. So families, Israel's not linking up. Why? Because there's a separation of ideology, and even amongst the nations, there's separations of ideology. So the people are not happy because they're not gonna fake the funk, because they know now that the shit is garbage, that it's all pagan made holidays. All right, and with the economy the way it is, people are like, nah, man. But the economy is also linked to your ideology. So communism failed, socialism failed, and guess what? One of the biggest ideologies in question now is capitalism. All right, and what is capitalism? Capitalism is capitalizing on the downfall of others. You know what I'm saying? So it's being a snake in the grass. All right, it's chopping knees. It's doing whatever you need to do to overtake your neighbor financially. So all these different ideologies they failing. All right. So verse 10, it says, the city of confusion is broken down. Every house is shut up that no man may come in. There is a crying for wine in the streets. All joy is darkened. The mirth of the land is gone. All right, so that's exactly what's going on. Why? Because Babylon's wine is on trial. And like I said, as we know in Israel, of course, like the apostles stated, you're going to see the year of apostasy, meaning guys are going to defect. But it really goes into the same thing, right? Because, there must be separation, because certain ideologies are going to perish right here in Babylon. All right, if you're an Israelite believing that the heathens can make it, that's a totally separate ideology and philosophy. All right, and belief. It's not scriptural. So therefore, it's going to be brought up. The question is going to fail like every other ideology that's failing, and it's going to perish here with the people that believe. All right, because the ideology has to perish with the people that believe. So if you don't have the proper faith as an Israelite, you're going to perish here in Babylon. And in one way or another, you're going to perish. And then eventually you're going to, you might take the chip, you might not take the chip. But either way, if you have that ideology, you are going to perish. All right. You're not going to enter into the kingdom of Yahweh Shah. Introspection, it says the examination or observation of one's own mental and emotional process. It says, what is introspection in simple words? It says introspection is the simple act of looking inward to examine your own thoughts, feelings, and mental processes. Essentially, self-reflection or soul searching. And I've stated that, this is 2026 is going to be a great year for soul searching, beginning with, Babylon's wine. And that's going to trickle down on everybody. Israel is going through a soul searching right now. That's the reason why you have separations. You have guys that are just straight up, they don't have the faith. You have guys that are straight up agents, COINTELPRO. And then you have the rest, believers, true believers. And they have to be separated because they have different ideologies. All right. We have different wine. All right. So this is what's going on. This is the spirit that's going to be spread out, in 2026 without a doubt. And that's going to bring about a lot of chaos and confusion and anxiety. All right. But only the elect are going to be spiritually, mentally protected from the fall of society, basically. The fall of Idumea and his civilization. Because Idumea civilization is all about bringing different ideologies and trying to make it work. But when it comes to the Lord, there's one ideology, there's one philosophy, there's one belief, one faith. And that's what we're going to rock with because that is the truth. We're not going to mix it up with everybody else and trying to make it work. All right. Babylon tried it. Babylon was made for it to show that that doesn't work. All right. Babylon was an experimentation that was meant to fail, to show the world, beginning with the Israelites, that mixing up sin and bullshit and all that does not work. All right. It does not work. So that's what we're going into. It says, why did I react that way? So you really start to question everything, man. Everybody's going to start to question everything. And Israel, because that's really the people that truly matter. All right. Israel has to go through, introspection as well. Israel is we kind of looking at it like, okay, how all these ideology, Babylon's wine, how has that wine affected our people, the men, the women, and the children of Israel? All right. When you go to Hosea chapter 4, I'm going to read through Hosea chapter 4 and 1. It says, the Most High's controversy with Israel. It says, hear the word of the Lord, Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua, you children of Israel. For the Lord has a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because there is no truth, no mercy, no knowledge of the Most High in the land. All right, so there's a controversy with the Israelites. Why? Because, the knowledge that we have is a mixture of different ideologies and belief of the heathens, primarily the man who has enslaved us for over 500 years, the so-called white man, the Edomites, and it's failed. It's not working. All right, it's turning our people into complete degenerates. Verse 2, it says, by swearing and lying and killing and stealing and committing adultery, they break out and blood toucheth blood. All right, so we aware of this. This is what the community is all about. If you want to describe the so-called community, beginning with the so-called Negroes, like, it's all about swearing, it's all about lying, it's all about killing and stealing and committing adultery. That's what the music is about. That's what the culture is about. And then it's about what? Blood touching blood. It's about killing your neighbor. It's about, I wish a nigga would, that's what it's all about. And that philosophy, that way of life, that psychological, that psyop from the CIA, our people bought into that. But it all goes back to the curses. And again, it's going to be put on trial. The so-called black culture is going to be put on trial. All right, the so-called Hispanic culture, the Latin gangs, that shit going to be put on trial. All right, all of this nonsense, man. The native, right? That rain worshiping, animal worshiping, nature worshiping, man. We're not supposed to worship nature. God worshiped nature from sun up to sundown, but still got the asses kicked by Edom Esau. When Esau pulled up with that iron, he put down all them totem poles, man. The nature couldn't save you. Praying for the rain couldn't save you. Praying for the wolf and praying the eagle and all, none of that shit worked. Because you're not supposed to worship nature. Nature is here to serve you, not the other way around. So the Gadites completely lost on that. So now they're going to have to reflect on that. You know what I'm saying? And only the elect of those tribes, Gad and Reuben, are going to come out of that nonsense. All right? Verse 3, it says, therefore shall the land mourn, and everyone that dwelleth therein shall languish with the beast of the field and with the fowl of heaven. Yea, the fishes of the sea also shall be taken away. Let's go to verse 6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy power. I will also forget thy children. All right, which beginning with Judah on down to Issachar, all the tribes at some point forgot. But now we being brought back, really the elect. And then, yeah, you got a bunch of scoundrels that are also receiving the knowledge of who they are, but they're not receiving the understanding, and they're not being given true holy hope. So they're just a bunch of scoundrels that are kind of, supposed to, make our job and our journey here very difficult. You know who they are, you know what I'm saying, in these different camps. So you just gotta outlast these scoundrels, man. That's all it is, man. You just gotta outlast these scoundrels. How about enduring it to the end? Eventually, these scoundrels are gonna be revealed. Eventually, they're gonna be taken out. You just gotta outlast these guys, man, and endure sound doctrine. Hosea 4:7, as they would increase, so their sin against me, therefore will I change their glory into shame. All right, they eat up the sin of my people, and they set their heart on their iniquity. Let me jump down. Verse 11, actually verse 10. For they shall eat and not have enough. They shall commit whoredom and shall not increase, because they have left off to take heed of the Lord. Right. So all of the stuff that Israel is doing, it hasn't increased. Right. Economically, Israel is still at the very bottom. It's been like that from the get-go. Christianity hasn't changed that. Do as that will spirit. The Baphomet spirit hasn't changed that. Trying to climb through the ladder of capitalism hasn't changed that. So everything that so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans have tried following Babylon's wine has not worked out. The ghettos of the slums are still the ghettos of the slums. Generation of slaves. Just the same old bullshit, and things have gotten worse. So now the people across, the spirit of the Lord is going to be on everybody on the planet to be like, hold up, man, this Babylonian way, this Edomitish way, man, this shit ain't working. It's not working, clearly. We need something else. Something needs to happen. But because people won't get the answers, they're going to go buck wild. They're going to turn into savages. All right. And this is the turning point of societies and civilization, when a new power has to come in and basically, set things straight. Verse 11, whoredom and wine and new wine take away the heart. All right, so the heart of Israel was taken away by whoredom, wine, philosophies, and there's new philosophy. All these new beliefs, matriarchy, garbage, destroy the so-called Negroes. All right, and you look at those Latin tribes. Yeah, don't be fooled because they have husbands and fathers in the home. Listen, man, if you've been around those Latin tribes, the women in the background run the fucking show. All right, and the majority of the men of the Latin tribes, they're just donkeys. They just work their asses off and get drunk, and then the woman just really basically runs the whole show. All right, so pick your poison, man. Either you have a broken family, or you have a family where your woman is basically the end all be all. You know what I'm saying? And then it's bad. It's bad either way. Let me see. Verse 12. Yeah, that's it on it. I mean, that's a lot more, but I was able to hit the points. Now let's go to Revelation. All right, we got to figure out how this thing is going to end. This is Revelation chapter 14. All right, I'm going to start at 6. Subtitle, Vision of the Angel with the Gospel. It says, and I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth. All right. What does that mean? It means the spirit, right? The spirit, the Lord, basically having the angels put the Holy Spirit on certain men in Israel to preach the gospel. All right. To the elect. It says, everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation. When it says unto every nation and kindred and tongue and people, it's talking about the Israelites scattered across the other nations. All right. All the 12 tribes were scattered. All right. That was part of our curse, to be scattered. to be kicked off of our land and to be scattered and to lay seed amongst the nations. So the Israelites that are amongst the nations that are part of the elect will be preached to. We preach the gospel. All right. And that has happened. And it's continuing to happen. Verse 7, saying with a loud voice, fear the Most High and give glory unto him, which that's what we do. That's literally what we do. That's what we've been doing, beginning with our apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Saying with a loud voice, fear the Most High and give glory unto him, for the hour of his judgment is come. And worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. All right. We're literally been doing this for decades now. Verse 8, and there follow another angel saying, now we going into verse 8. There follow another angel saying, Babylon, a.k.a. the U.S., is fallen, that great city, because she made all the nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. So now we're entering the stage where the ideology, the wines, Babylon's wine is on trial and it's failing. All right. It's completely failing. It's failing Babylon. It's failing the Babylonians. It's failing the Israelites that believe in Babylon, and it's failing all the nations that followed after that, after its ways. All right. So, and then you see when the wine falls, what comes right after? Verse 9, doom for worshippers of the beast. What comes right after? And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast in his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb, Yahushua. So right after the wine is being basically put on trial, which that's what we're going into, and it's shown to have failed, now men are going to have to make their decisions. When I say men, primarily Israelite men, going to have to make their decisions and ride with Yahweh Shem Shah. But you're going to have a whole rack of people that is going to continue to follow a falling man, right? Esau, Edom, and they're going to take that stamp. And that stamp is the RFID microchip, plain and simple. That is the mark of the beast. All right. And it's crazy. Listen, it's prophecy. You know, the Titanic is falling. Some are going to jump ship, but others are going to go down with the Titanic, man. It is what it is, man. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, man, the elect are going to be saved. But that's the gist of the lesson. And I'm going to end up with this scripture. This is Ecclesiasticus, Sirach 16 and 22. And it states, who can declare the works of his justice? Or who can endure them? For his covenant is afar off, and the trial of all things is in the end. So 250 years introspection, apostasy, we are at the end. So everything is on trial now, man. And really what's on trial is Babylon's wine that's on trial. You know, when it comes to the gospel of Great Millstone, man, it's the gospel of Yahweh by Shem Shah. It's not ours. And according to Psalms 12 and 6, that gospel has been tried 7 times, been tried and purified 7 times. As silver is purified. So, you know, it's going to stand on its own. You know what I'm saying? The scripture's going to stand on its own. The proper breakdown, they're going to stand on its own. And it's going to outlast everything else, man. All right. And we just got to continue to believe in that, you know, until Yahweh Shah show up. So that was the lesson for the day. Hopefully you were edified as well as I was. Kahalam la Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahushua Ba'Shem, Chakodash, double honor to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom and salutation to all you sincere Akim, elect across the 4 winds, pushing his truth. Shalom.